Alright, we are recording. Yay, continuing in Utopia. So I'm just organizing some windows yet. That was very fortunate. So this is... Yes, chapter 3, because... Wait. This is chapter 3. What was the... Actually, yeah, I got a better place to look than that to see the names. Yeah, because there's the introduction that I'm counting as chapter 1. Chapter 2 is the discourses of Raphael, and then chapter 3 is of their towns, particularly of Amaurot. Which, as was explained in the previous chapter, and again here, it is it holds the Supreme Council, so that's why it's the most important of them, and would be why you'd focus on it. It's only like 3 pages long on here, but it's still filled with obvious contradictions. I guess we put, or at least if not necessarily obvious contradictions, it's unreasonable claims. Okay. So one thing to note that this is how it even starts off. He that knows one of their towns knows them all. They are so alike one another, except where the situation makes some difference. I shall therefore describe one of them, and none is so proper as Amaurot, for none is more eminent. Okay. And sorry, sometimes my reading when I'm reading it aloud goes between like going word by word, and so not really thinking about what is the next thing. And other times it's I remember and am reading a sentence instead of word by word, I guess is a better way to put it. Anyhow, so yeah, all of them are identical except where a situation calls for, which the way it was described previously would be that like if they choose, hey, we're going to build a city here, but it's on the side of a hill, which this actually is, though it even says it's more just an incline, that then, okay, there'll be certain changes there, whereas if it's on a completely flat plain, that's different. If it's this, if it's that, just geography. So, okay, that's fair. There's some stuff later on, though, that's going to make it definitely be a, wait, what? That design makes no, what? You can't possibly claim that. And I just want to check my notes. Yeah, just pointing out the whole, it is unreasonable, the idea that you could have a nation, a country that has, what did it say, 54 cities? That it could be that developed, and yet none of the cities have any personality on their own. Because no, I do not consider just the terrain to be an example of that. Because you'd expect it to be like, that one over there, well, hey, it was near a forest, so it's mainly made out of wood. Hey, that one's near a quarry, it's mainly made out of stone. That kind of personality, and that's also then going to impact the people there. Because if nothing else, you need carpenters in one place, stonemasons in the other for maintenance, and also it would impact how you decorate and such. So yeah, although how much decoration is a little hard to say. There's also that I put in here that, considering the whole idea of personality as well, many Roman cities, the center of it is identical from one to the other. The reason for that is because you would have a Roman battalion or just some size of their army would go out, they'd march a day, they would stop and they'd set up a camp. Sometimes those camps would end up becoming cities, that they would be temporary at first, but then it would become established for whatever reason, and so it's now got permanent structures there and it builds out. Well, the initial Roman camp it had a specific blueprint to it. So you'd always have like a cross through it, cross street in there. This is where the temple would be, this is where the barracks would be, this is where the shops would be, and so on. So it would always be like that, and that would be maintained. Now, as it develops and grows, the growth outside of that doesn't necessarily follow that pattern anymore, because it doesn't need to. It's not being built by the army, it's being built by just normal people. You might decide, hey, I want a larger building here. Hey, I want a weirdly shaped building here. They would do that. It's like Rome itself is not does not have an ortholinear layout, because it couldn't really do that. Plus, the Tiber kind of interferes with that, which, by the way, it is on a river. The description here also makes no sense, though, for a couple reasons. One thing, though, to first mention about this river, it actually has 2 rivers, but the main one that starts 80 miles away, And by the time it reaches this city, by the time it reaches Amaurot, it is half a mile wide. And they do have a stone bridge going across it. And it's just like, that's impressive that they have such a wide, such a long bridge there. And also just occurred to me, because we are actually told more or less how old the city is. There's no way that bridge could be that old, though. But still, it's like, that's an impressive bridge to have, that, being that long for this time period. Is it achievable? Of course, but it still is. That's kind of impressive. And he also notes that it's on the far side from where the sea is, because this river does eventually flow into the sea, and does also describe that the tides bring the seawater up, such that for a distance of, I think it's like 30 miles. Yeah, the tide comes up about 30 miles so full that there's nothing but salt water in the river. The city, however, is beyond that point, so it is always enjoying fresh water. But yeah, so that's interesting. It's that far in. The bridge is on the far side from the ocean, so that way whenever ships come up, so that the ships, without any hindrance, lie all along the side of the town. This is not as important as you may think, however, because it also says, the town is compassed with a high and thick wall, in which there are many towers and forts. There's also a broad and deep dry ditch, so thick with thorns, cast round 3 sides of the town, and the river is instead of a ditch on the 4th side. Okay, so this is, in theory, all the cities are like this. But still, high walls and a dry moat, essentially. Except for the side that has the river. It's like, okay, well then that also means then that you don't really have a harbor there, because it would be against a wall. Why have the harbor right there, then? You'd have to go through a gate. There's likely only 1 or 2 gates on that side. You might as well, but it's also going to be the most vulnerable wall, because if you're going to be attacked, it's going to do something to the river at least cut it off so you can't escape that way. So yeah, I mean, it's like, this doesn't, you wouldn't want the wall there for commerce purposes, but it's also, I want to point out, it does say that it is compassed by, that the town is compassed by the walls, and then the ditches outside that, except for where the river is, it doesn't have the ditch. This means then that all of the development is within the walls. That's what that's telling me. That is not how towns were designed, though. Yes, you would have a castle or a citadel, I think citadel's the proper term, I know castle is, that would be in the center of a town, but, it would be at the center. The town is built outside of it, though. So when the area is being besieged, the townspeople flee into the castle walls. The castle wall doesn't extend around the town, though, because that's going to prevent it from growing. I'm just trying to remember. I think... Oh, I don't remember. I'm trying to picture Edoras in The Two Towers and Return of the King. Because I'm just trying to remember if the longhouse where the king is, if that had additional fortifications, or if that was in fact, no, Edoras was completely within the spiked wall, whatever the proper term for that would be. I'm also just thinking with Gondor and Minas Tirith, did that have? I know not in the movie. I'm wondering. No. In the book, because the Pelennor Fields actually was like farmland. If I remember correctly, because I'm pretty sure that there were references to like lines there for separating the crops. So you'd likely have people living outside of that, but obviously Minas Tirith itself had the Great Walls. But it's still, with Minas Tirith, you do have the layers. So there's multiple layers leading up. You would actually see that in various ancient towns, where there is a spot that you can flee to, but the normal townspeople are outside of that, would be living outside of that. I'm just trying to think, is there... Helm's Deep also kind of shows that, though you don't have a town developed there, but you do have, within... there are levels. There's the outer wall, there is the citadel, and then there's even the caves behind that are all layers to its defense. I can't think of any others, so now I'm just trying to run through, are there any other... I can't really think of any television shows depicting it. Are there any movies Eh, you'd only see it there, but it is stated. In various biblical epics, any of them that are set in Jerusalem, the two great structures are the temple, which, yes, does have a wall, but also the citadel. So, like for Ben-Hur, it's not. You do visit it there, but you don't have a sense of its location and its power. In the, at least not the 59, I don't remember with the 20 version, the 1920s version, but definitely in the book, it is described as being this very foreboding and powerful place, that it is the most significant structure there outside of the temple. Space for anyone who's not a Jew, that's the big thing. I think in the king, no, just King of Kings, not the King of Kings. So I have them right here. It's like, in this one, I think you do get a better view of it and its significance. This is the King of Kings. I don't remember how much you see it. I like my biblical epics. So, and by the way, they are both actually. I do enjoy them. I think that they're good. But this one is also interesting. This is the Flickr Alley version, by the way. Well, I'm not sure if anyone else sells it, but they have two versions. The Roadshow version and the general release reconstruction. The Roadshow version, I've probably have mentioned this previously. It's yeah, okay, hang on. Okay, yeah, the Roadshow version actually features Technicolor. It's from 1927, but yes, it has Technicolor. Because Technicolor is that old, it just would have been expensive. And they also did tinting of the frames so that it would still be along a scale, but instead of it being like from white to black, it would be from blue to black or red to black. They do things like that, and also hand painted that. They put in a lot of effort on it, and it is quite a thing to see. One thing that I do find a little disappointing about it, though, when I've watched it, because it's like, okay, cool, you got Technicolor. Why are we opening in Technicolor? Like, it makes sense for the Resurrection, that being in Technicolor. And let me tell you something, it is beautiful. They did a great job on that remaster for that Blu-ray. Absolute fantastic job. Because looking at some of that, it's like, this could have been filmed today. I mean, yeah, it's pretty grainy, but it would have been on film today, not a digital camera, but still, it's like very good looking. Anyhow, back to this. So yeah, this idea that the wall has to encompass all of the like homes, all the businesses and such, that's absurd. Because that means that you can't possibly have any growth there. And it also restricts any commerce. Because now anything coming in must go through the gates. Which is also true. Jerusalem is also a walled city and you have to walk through gates, but Jerusalem is potentially a much larger city than this would be. Let me see how big it is. Yeah, it just figures almost square. For from one side of it, which shoots up almost to the top of the hill, it runs down and is sent for 2 miles. So it's 2 miles by 2 miles, 4 square miles. That's not that big. It is also even because I'm just thinking again how it's depicted in how Jerusalem is depicted in movies like that. It still would be you'd have people on the outside. You'd have homes and such built on the outside of the wall. You would still have people coming inside for commerce, but still you'd want the ability to do things outside of the wall because it's just going to be easier. So yeah, it's a silly design. Also does describe their buildings are good and are so uniform that a whole side of a street looks like one house. Okay, now this is important because later, when talking about the history of the city, but also their houses. Now their houses are 3 stories high. The fronts of them are faced either with stone, plastering, or brick, and between the facings of their walls, they throw in their rubbish. So, like, stone, plastering, or brick. But we just were told that, where is it? that the whole side of a street looks like one house. That means it has to be all one material. So they have entire streets where one side is just one material. But then it says that. So it's like, this would be one of those, it's possible, but it's kind of unreasonable. Unless you built all of them at the same time. And it's also, I'm like, you can look at places like San Francisco is like this, where they do have homes that directly abut each other. But it's still, the faces are different. And not even just like, oh, they're a different color. Some of them, they will still look like these are completely different houses. So you would definitely be having different material. And I don't know if they were built all at the same time, but still. And it's also, there's one area not far from where I live that we'll go by sometimes running errands. And it's like, yeah, these are all like post-World War II, blanking on the prefabricated homes. But they still vary because they were just built a little differently. They may have had an addition put on. They decided to do something different with the roof. It's like there's personality to them, even though they were, in some cases, literally purchased out of a Sears catalog. But here, nope, it's all supposed to be uniform. They also all have gardens in the back, and this is important because it does also say, and this humor of ordering their gardens so well is not only kept up by the pleasure they find in it, but also by an emulation between the inhabitants of the several streets who vie with each other. So there's competition. They do try to compete as far as like who has a better garden. Okay, that means that they have some sense of ownership then over their gardens. But it also says that there's no property. It's like, you can't, they're allowed to have this sense of ownership over plants, but not over their home. It's also this. There being no property among them, every man may freely enter into any house whatsoever. On the one hand, if you have a small enough community, I could see that happening as far as, like, everybody knows each other. If you were to walk into the wrong house by accident, the people there might still be like, oh, hey, Joe, yeah, this isn't where you live, but, I mean, we were about to sit down to dinner. You want to join us, or do you really want to get back to your home? It's like, no, I'll sit down. It's like, they can be that. But that's not what this says here. This says that, no, you just there's no sense of ownership over any of this, so you are just freely able to enter any home, and potentially then have anything in that home you want. They must not be raising many daughters there, because a lot of dads would be like, nah, this ain't your home, get out. That, or they treat their women very differently. I don't remember, is there one on, like, marriage or anything? A chapter on there? No? Okay. I mean, there was the religions, but, which that may prove interesting. But I need to also finish because there's another sentence after this that no sense of ownership. At every 10 years' end, they shift their houses by lots. Wait a minute. They don't have ownership. There's no sense of ownership here. They do not own these homes. Why are you shifting them? I mean, it's literally, there being no property among them, every man may freely enter into any house whatsoever, at every 10 years' end, they shift their houses by lot. This is contradictory. If there is no sense of ownership, then there's no shifting of lots. Because you can't be assigned a home. Because it cannot be your home. Okay, so this is an obvious contradiction here. And there's also, if you can enter any freely, then it's like, okay, fine. I'm now on, I can think of 223B Baker Street. Just trying to think, what's another address? What's another famous address? But it's like, Sherlock doesn't want to leave his home. It's been 10 years. Okay, you assigned to a different one. Okay, that's fine. Walks out, walks right back in. What are you doing? It's like, well, we have no sense of property, so we can just, go wherever we want. So we can just enter any home we want. I've entered this one. What are you going to do? It's like, well, no, you have to go. Why? Because somebody else is assigned here, so they own it? Shit. Yeah, that's we got ownership, don't we? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. there's also the issue. Remember, they're supposed to spend. They spend 2 years out in the country, and then are brought back into the city. So you only get 8 years in these homes, or however frequently that cycling is. That makes no sense. It's like, what happens during those 2 years? Because you're not living in there, you're living in the country. Does somebody else live in your home? Is it left empty? Do you just have people randomly entering your home now for those 2 years? I mean, I guess in theory you brought your belongings with you, which, yes, you should have belongings. At minimum, you have your clothes. Although, there being no property among them, every man may freely enter into any house whatsoever. Utopian panty raids. Oh, God. I'm sorry, but technically, that statement there, that's entirely true. You could have a group of people, men or women, just decide, I'm going to go into their house, steal all their clothes, and then leave. Which, depending on when you do it, and how they choose to sleep, that might be they're now nude. Hey, I need to add this to my notes. Is it that I gotta put that into the review. Oh man, it has been a very, very long time since I've seen Revenge of the Nerds. I don't necessarily need to see it again, but it's like, yep, there was no reason for that to not happen here, because there's no ownership, so you can't say, well, I'm protecting my property, because you don't have property. If there's no ownership, there's also no theft there. So at most, it's I don't want somebody physically touching me. I don't want somebody physically assaulting me. It's like, okay, are they doing that? No, then you have to let them go, because this theft is no crime. Okay, then we get this. That's a significant problem as well. Hang on, I got a fingerprint I want off. There we go. I got so many lens cleaning cloths around. Their records that contain the history of their town and state are preserved with an exact care, and run backwards 1,760 years. 1,760 years. Okay, this is important. Because, when was this written? 1516. That chapter, final chapter on the religions, that's going to be fairly interesting. Because that means that this city has a continuous history. And this state has a continuous history. Yes. No. We do know. Hang on. Okay. It is stated Amaurot was founded by Utopus, who founded the nation, so this city is that old. Okay. It goes before Christ by hundreds of years. It is older, like it predates Julius Caesar, which means predate, because it's not that simple, but at least Caesar's death and then the civil war over his successor is basically when Rome stopped being a republic and became an empire. That's when it's kind of treated as, but it's technically the republic, the Senate continues. It's a weird thing. Because for some time they weren't emperors, they were just the proconsul, and by abusing the powers of and the position of the dictator, that was in their laws, they basically made themselves emperors. But it was over time that more and more power got pulled into that position, and so Rome was not completely an empire. It didn't just happen like that, even though we do kind of treat it as that's Caesar, with Julius Caesar, was the end of the Republic. Augustus Caesar, his adopted son, would be the first emperor. We kind of treat it as that, but there technically is nuance. Anyhow. But yeah, just think about that. 1,760 years. That's a long, long period of time. That's also why it does say, wrong way. From these, it appears that their houses were at first low and mean, meaning crude in this case, that's the use of mean here, like cottages made of any sort of timber and were built with mud walls and thatched with straw. But now their houses are 3 stories high, yet the fronts of them are faced with either with stone, plastering, or brick, and between the facing of their walls they throw in their rubbish. I'm assuming that when they say throw in their rubbish, they just mean they're filling it, that's how they fill up the gap there, and that is, I'm pretty sure, going to be completely normal, because it doesn't really matter what that space is filled with, you would just put stuff, but it's not like that's just where they throw the trash and then somebody else cleans it out. No, I'm pretty sure that is just how we're filling in that gap. But it still is, that's a long period of time, and when were these walls built? I mean, and this is a 2-mile by 2-mile city. That's tiny. That's legitimately tiny. To put that into perspective, I will occasionally go on a walk down to a park and back. I walk in one direction because it's kind of an L shape for me to get there. I walk in one direction, 1.1 miles maybe, and then like 2 miles in another direction. Then the total walk is actually like better than 5 miles. I'm not sure if it's 6. Okay, fair distance. I'm almost for that covering. I mean, it would be 8 miles for the outside, so I'm like covering a good portion of that. I'm walking from one corner to the opposite corner and back, nearly, with that. So I mean, it's a small town, and you want me to believe that it's a 1,700-year-old town, but it's still this tiny? No, that is absurd. Because just population growth itself should have pushed this to being quite large. Now, I'm just trying to think, how old is Rome? Rome would not be as old as Jerusalem, since I brought that city up before, but Rome would have been larger. Rome was also not conquered multiple times, not having to be rebuilt multiple times. I mean, yes, there were definitely times it had to be rebuilt, but it was by the same civilization typically. And it was huge. It was one of the megacities of the ancient world. So it's like, you want me to believe that this thing is, I mean, 2 miles by 2 miles, there's like a single just one district in Rome would be larger than this. That's yeah, no, it's absurd. It's absurd. Because it's also with the city walls, how do you handle population growth? You can't, because you can't just tear down the wall and put it up a little later. No, you'd have successive layers either, because people start building outside, and then you build up a new wall, build outside, build up. You're either doing that, or I don't know. You'd have to be getting rid of the population somehow. I don't know. But it is the whole, this is a fantasy place. This never existed. But it is still a... When Moore wrote it, he did write it as satire. He wrote it to be fictitious. But it is just speaking to... Part of the reason I wanted to go through this, because people think Utopia, is perfect. No, it's not. It is completely made up. We have contradictions, one sentence to the next. Okay, it is not a real place. It cannot exist, and not as you can't achieve paradise, but because it doesn't work. It has contradictions. It has unreasonable claims. So yeah, this is... Yeah, it's also going back, I don't remember if I said it or not. It was when the thought crossed my mind of the whole utopian panty raid kind of thing is, okay, fine. I can believe that you definitely did not see the accumulation of stuff, of property back then as you see today. It's like I got odd stuff around me. Most of it is like movies. I got computers. It's like laptop, desktop, test system. I mean, test system is probably a bit unusual. So is the server, but laptop and desktop, those are probably common for a lot of homes. A lot of movies, fair amount of television, books. books would probably be in these homes. I mean, that's very reasonable that people would have a collection of books, and they would try to bring those with them so that they can so they can enjoy them as they wish. But it would also be even if it is oh, well, no, it's okay if somebody comes in and takes it, and takes a book because they want to read it, that's fine. But how do you know that they're going to respect it? People don't always respect their own books. People don't always even respect library books. So, yeah, I mean, it's... In theory, there's also food. Is somebody allowed to just come in and take your food? Oils. And by that I mean, like, fuel oil. Things like that. So, yeah, it is just... It is absurd in the classical sense of that word, meaning nothing. Absurdist plays and such, or absurdist stories, they meant nothing. Like Waiting for Godot is an example of one. That he never shows up. It's just a group of people waiting in a room, waiting for him to show up, and he never does. So, yeah. Alright, so yeah, how do you like that? It's actually kind of short. How short is the next one? Which is Of Their Magistrates. Which we did, Oh. Really? Okay. I might just do that straight away, because it's only about a page long. Which is also kind of scary. I like these short ones. It makes it easy to do videos. I also hate the fact it's still 133 pages, and I'm on page, like, 51? 54. I'm not even halfway through the book. How long is some of these other chapters going to be? So I'm probably going to be having to break it out into, have another chapter that's broken into multiple videos. Is what it is. But I don't believe I said it before, but in the previous chapter it did mention with the whole people going out into the country that... Oh, wait, no, I think I did read the quote. I just didn't talk about it. That a family goes out and it's 30 to 40 people to a family. Well, 30 to 40 adults. I'm going to continue acting as though a family is a genealogically related unit. And so this would be person with cousins, potentially aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews. And it's like, it might be 2 generations, 3 generations worth, but that I am assuming that they are all familiar with each other in that way, as opposed to just being a cohort that is 30 to 40 people. You're just using it. Why would you use the word family when something like cohort that doesn't necessarily imply prior relationship? Family does imply that, so I'm going to continue to assume that. But in any case, one magistrate is in charge of each family. At least I'm pretty sure that's how... Yeah, that was it. Or it was one magistrate is in charge of multiple families, but it was still... The magistrate is in charge of that, so... I guess since there's definite relations to the communism, that the magistrate would be akin to commissars, potentially. We'll see. We shall see. Alright. See you next time.